As you have said with regards to the program of a refugee, when you look at it, it's race-based.
Hey, folks, recently I made comments about CNN's documentary where the journalist Donnie O'Sullivan did a story about South Africa. In interest of full disclosure, CNN invited me to participate in that and interviewed me in Alabama. But when I answered Donnie O'Sullivan's questions, it was pretty obvious to me that I wouldn't be in the documentary because I refused to tell fairy tales. They wanted me to lie about President Trump saying he had no authority to do the refugee program for South Africans and that these farmers aren't refugees. Well, first off, I refuted that on the spot. They're not farmers. Well, the Afrikaners, no, they're not Afrikaners. Well, the white Afrikaners, no. They're South Africans suffering from unjust racial persecution. It's been listed on the embassy website since the 10th of February 2025.
When you look at it, it's race-based. Firstly, you must be a white South African, and secondly, you must be an Afrikaner. So it's a race-based refugee program.
Now we have the foreign minister here telling fairy tales in a real-time psychological operation and propaganda effort by state disinformation on CNN. Again, spreading propaganda and misinformation. Well, this is clearly disinformation. This is an effort to lie about the situation. Now, why would South Africa do this? Well, one reason is to dissuade coloreds and Indians from participating in the program. But I'm sorry to inform Mr. Lamola, Indians and coloreds are participating and have participated in this program since the outset. The 59ers who came over on the 12th of May included a colored family. Yep, and Indians have also arrived in the States, and more coloreds have arrived. And amongst the thousands and thousands of people who have been screened and approved for the program awaiting travel already, there are Indians and coloreds. So I don't know what he's going on about here.
Program is not in line with the Geneva Convention that someone to qualify to be a refugee should be persecuted, should be running from a war, and all those. This is just a race-based policy position.
Here, Lamola complains that this doesn't meet the standards for the Geneva Conventions for what a refugee is. But in fact, he's wrong. Once again, he's been wrong all along. This is the same guy who told us earlier this year that they're not refugees. Why? Well, because they don't live in tents. They aren't fleeing from a war. And they aren't registered with the UN, none of which are requirements to be considered a refugee under international standards from the United Nations, international agreements, and certainly not under the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980, which governs the refugee program here in the United States. But what Lamola is trying to refer to is the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 add-on protocol. Now, those two treaties define a refugee as someone with a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Nowhere in the definition to say you have to flee from a war. For instance, I've given this story many times. If you're a homosexual and you live in Syria, where that's frowned upon, you can, if homosexuals are designated as a particular social group by Congress, the State Department, or the President, then they can come over on the refugee program because they're part of a social group that's being persecuted. And if you're gay in Syria, people find out you're gay, you might be dropped off a roof. That's persecution. In South Africa's context, this is based on race, a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race. It doesn't even say you have to be persecuted, but a legitimate basis. The intentional effort to pass the Bella Bill to force Afrikaner children to learn in English, the Expropriation Act, which violates the Constitution, and it was written and it's been stated by Lamola himself as Justice Minister, by Ramaphosa, and by the Deputy President Paul Mashatile, among many, many other senior ANC politicians, that the intent is to take land from Afrikaners. The outright hostility that's being expressed now to white South Africans and to coloreds and Indians across the country, all you need is a well-founded fear of persecution. He has no idea what he's talking about. This is the man who's the foreign minister of a country, and he doesn't even know the basic things about refugee norms. And he spreads propaganda. And CNN's Christian Amanpour airs it. What is this? It's insane is what it is. It's absolutely insane. And of course, this propaganda is all timed to come out on the eve of the G20 summit. Something the South African government screwed up royally, with at least 25% of the heads of states not even attending the event. And now today, President Ramaphosa fraudulently, falsely declaring the United States is now going to come participate in the conference, the summit. They're not. Carolyn Levitt from the White House refuted that, basically calling Ramaphosa a liar. It's getting ugly here. But Lamola is making this stuff up. Folks, you don't have to believe me. Go look up the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980. Go look up the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 67 Protocol. I'm telling you the facts. This guy is feeding you horse manure.
Be aimed for a particular agenda that we believe is being pursued by the American government, because there's no real basis at all to have a race-based refugee policy.
What say you, South Africa, Mzansi? I'm saying this is quite an obvious psychological operation. Cheers.